Alright, so the beer I'm going to try to clone today is Yellow Rose Smash IPA. A Smash IPA, or a Smash any kind of beer, I don't know if they do it with anything other than IPAs, but a Smash IPA is a single malt and single hop beer. So there's only one type of malt in it and one type of hops. And for this, it's German pilsner malt and Mosaic hops. I believe the Mosaic hops has an acidity, an alpha acid content of 12.3%. But I'm going to be using, so it's a pretty big beer. It's about 14 pounds of grain, all German pilsner malt. And a couple people have said to get closer to the original, you should add a pound of Capriles malt. I'm not really familiar with that malt, but if it gets anywhere near this, I'm down, because this beer is amazing. And you're also using a whole lot of hops throughout the boil, and then you're also dry hopping with 2 ounces after you're done. I'll show the recipe on screen shortly, but just to get a feel for this beer, I'm going to pour one up. I've had quite a few of these in my liquor store. The local liquor store just got them in yesterday for the first time in about a month, and I've been checking regularly. But it's kind of a cloudy beer, but really, really good. Oh, it also uses Whitelabs, I believe, 1001 yeast, for which I made a yeast starter. I made that about 2 or 3 days ago, but as you can see, it's really pretty, kind of a hazy color. That might just be chill haze, but as far as the taste, it's very floral, kind of a grapefruit flavor. It goes in beyond that. I'm not really much of a beer taster as well, or not very good at beer tasting, but it's a little better once it's warmed up a bit, believe it or not. But this is probably my favorite beer ever made, so hopefully I can do it justice, at least in some small part, today brewing this beer. It comes in 4-packs, and they're about $12 for a 4-pack, so it's a little expensive, but man, it's worth it. It's really, really good beer. So, and it's Texas beer, so it was made in Magnolia, Texas, which I believe is just north of Houston. I don't know if y'all can see that too well, but it has a lot of its story on the back. It's 6.8% alcohol, original gravity of 1.063, final gravity of 1.012, and it's an IBU rating of 62. So that's not extremely high for an IPA, but it actually tastes considerably lower than that just tasting it. It's pretty well balanced. Every day. Alright, so we're going to be grinding down the last pound of 15 pounds of German Pilsner malt, and we're going to be doing that right now. I have a cordless drill and a Kegco grind mill. Alright, so there's actually an extra pound or 1.6 pounds of grain in here. I'm going to empty that into this bowl, and then I'm going to be feeding it to the chickens so that nothing is wasted. Alright, so we're going to give the chickens the extra grains that we got here. Hopefully they like German Pilsner malt. Alright, so according to Beersmith, I need 4.6 gallons of water for my mash, and I have a 5-gallon cooler here and 9 gallons of water in my main mash tun. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 5 gallons of water in here to mash with initially, and then I'm going to go ahead and boil the rest that's in the mash tun in a second. But I got to get the grains out of my boil kettle before I can start, so I did it a little backwards, but this is only my second all grain batch, so we'll get to it. Alright, so my boil kettle is empty right now. I have my grains in my first boil kettle right here, which I don't think I'm actually going to be using for this particular brew day, but I'm going to empty this out. That's my main mash tun that I'm going to use. I should have about 13.5 pounds of grain in there here in a second. And then I have 5 gallons of water that I got out of the hot water tap. That's sitting at 120. And my mash temperature is actually 156. So I'm going to put it in the boil kettle, get it heated up, and then mash in. Alright, so there's about 4 gallons in my hot liquor tank right now, and then my mash tun is empty, so I'm going to go ahead and put the grains in there and then mash in with the 4.6 gallons of water that I'm supposed to, which has heated up to right at 150 degrees, so I actually need to go for 6 more degrees. But I'll mash in, start a timer, and get it going. Alright, so I'm going to pour my grains in here and then get the I'm going to put my grains in there and then pour the mash water, or the strike water I believe is what it's called, in. I'm definitely going to try to make sure to stir in really well. I want to avoid any kind of dough balls or anything like that, and get the best efficiency I can out of what I got. Okay, so our strike water is coming up to about 165 degrees. I'm going to go to 170 and then put it in my hot liquor tank so that I can sparge after the hour is done, and then I'll get back to mowing. So my wife is building an expansion for her chicken coop, and I started to mow the yard and need to finish, and I have 1 hour until my mash is complete, so I'm going to mow really fast and then get back to brewing. Much better. Alright, so I'm going to use just a clear Pyrex bowl for the Vorloff. Make sure everything's nice and clear. Set the grain bed. Lots of grain particles coming out here. I'm going to repeat this about 4 or 5 times, or whenever you don't see as much grain actually getting through your screen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pour this. But once this gets to a little bit slower of a trickle, I'm going to cut it off. My sparge water I just measured is at 164 degrees. So it's about 3 degrees shy of what I wanted it. But I'm just going to go ahead and top it off, stir it. There's different schools of thought on this, whether you should stir, let it sit for a while. But from what I've read, just pouring your sparge water in, stirring, and then resetting your grain bed is just about as effective as any of the other methods. So before the wind gets to this, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off, pour in, and then get up to my boil volume. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'll pour in the remaining 4 gallons here. Cover this. Any of those good Texas bugs getting in there. Just to show you what the grain bed or the grain is looking like in there. I don't know how well you can see, but 10-gallon mash tun, plenty of room for 14-gallon or 14 pound. Let me go ahead and stir this up. The smell is really, really good. you hear anything in the background, that's the chickens. They get a little vocal when people are out here and they're not let out. Alright, so second running's Vorlov. Here we go. Just about the same as before. I'm going for a pre-boil volume of, I believe, 6.25 gallons. Last time I did this, I had a lot of boil off in my main boil, and I ended up with only about a 4.5 gallon batch. So I went ahead and upped all my measurements. On Beersmith, it's called scaling the recipe, and I went ahead and upped my pre-boil so that after evaporation and everything, I'd get, kind of right at 5 gallons, enough to fill my keg. Love to know y'all's opinion on this. I'm actually thinking about putting 3 gallons of this in my keg and then bottling 20 more with 2 ounces of dextrose. I don't know if anyone really does that, as far as because I want some on tap and I want to be able to share some. So thoughts, comments would be great. I'm really new to this, so criticism, constructive criticism, anything, I'm open to it. Just let me know. I'll turn it back on here in a second once this gets a little bit slower and when I get to my pre-boil volume. Thank y'all. Alright, so we are approaching our boil volume, which is 6.25 gallons. It's really full in my boil kettle, so hopefully we don't have any boil overs. Evidently I undershot my dead space in my mash tun, but that's our boil volume for now. So I'm going to go ahead and get it on the heat, start the boil, stir like crazy to avoid boil overs, and see if I can get this. Okay, so I was manipulating the propane valve for a second there and stirring vigorously since I'm so close to the maximum capacity of my boil kettle. I had about 5 almost boil overs there. So just kind of playing with the valve and stirring, and you can see this residue on the side of the kettle. I went ahead and I'm about to drop my first hops and start my timer. I was just trying to keep from having a boil over, waiting for the heat break. So let me go ahead and drop that hops in. Hops bag, as it were. 1 ounce of Mosaic. Alright, so we definitely had the heat break happen. Shouldn't be much more foam. I'm going to keep this pretty warm. And eventually, once I'm not afraid of any more boil overs, I'll probably cover it mostly. But yeah, let me go ahead and start my timer. It's going to alert me at 30 minutes, and I'm going to add 1 more ounce of Mosaic. So I'm going to go ahead and prep another bag of that. This hops is actually pretty expensive. I don't know if it's new or if there's something really special about it, but it's at least on Northern Brewer and stuff like that, it's about $3 per ounce. And even if you buy it in bulk, you're not actually going to save that much money. So the smell is ridiculously good. I wish you could smell it. So I got my timers rolling, boil's going well. 30 minutes from now I'll have to actually do something to it, but until then, should just sit back and enjoy what I got going here. I have that Yellow Rose by Lone Pint Brewing Company, and tasting that is really good. Hopefully this turns out like this, because this is incredible. It's been about an hour since I poured this, and it's probably approaching, I'd say room temperature, but it's probably around 65, no, 60, anywhere from 50 to 65 degrees, something like that. And really, really gives almost like a raisiny, a grape. Like that sounds weird to say for a beer, but it really, really, really good flavor going on here. Yeah, it's a good beer. If I even get close, I'm gonna be happy. Alright, so we're 30 minutes into the boil, and I'm gonna add my next hop bag, which is just another 1 ounce of Mosaic. Just so you can see the color and stuff that I'm getting so far. Let's see here. Yeah, that's what I got going for now. Okay, so I have my yeast nutrient and wort block tablet. It's the last 10 minutes. I'm going to throw it in. And I'm going to put my last hop addition in at flame out. I almost forgot. I'm going to go ahead and put my wort chiller in there so that it can be sanitized. Alright, so it's flame out, and throw in my last hop bag, and then I'm going to start the wort chiller here in just a second. Alright, so this is my yeast starter. That's the yeast settled at the bottom. It's room temperature now, so I'm just going to swirl it around. My mash is out, or my malt, whatever you call it, is outside. Cooling off right now with the wort chiller. My wort, that's what it's called. And as soon as I bring it in here, I'm going to dump it in that fermenter and then pitch this yeast. So this is that, and I'll have it in here in just a second. Okay, so the siphon has started. Should be right at about 5.5 gallons, and the specific gravity read out at 1.060. So we'll get that fermenter filled, and then I'll turn it back on for pitching the yeast. Alright, so that's it. That's as much as I got. It looks like it's about 4.5 gallons. Not as much as I'd hoped. It looks like a lot more boiled off than I thought. But I'm going to seal this up. Well, I'm going to pitch the yeast, which I have here. I'm going to take the foil off and sanitize around the top, just to make sure everything that goes in there is sanitized. And I'm going to pour this straight in, and then seal it up with the airlock. Try not to get much in there, but definitely don't want to contaminate the batch. So I'm going to swirl it around, last little bit, and pour it straight in. Okay, this is full of star sand. It's been sanitized for the last like 20 minutes. We'll seal this up. Make sure we get a good seal going. And I'll get back with you for the first day of fermentation, make sure everything went well, which I know it did because my yeast is very active. And hopefully for kegging and tasting, and I'll be comparing it to the Lone Pint Yellow Rose right here. I have 4 of them. Hopefully I'll still have one by the time it gets done. It says it's supposed to be aged for 30 days. I'm going to put it in a secondary in about 5 days, depending on how the fermentation goes. Probably about a week and a half. We'll just see how it goes. And then I'm going to dry hop it with another 1.5 ounces of Mosaic. So, good to see y'all. Happy brewing. See you soon. Okay, so this is the Yellow Rose clone that I started about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. And the fermentation is complete. And I'm going to go ahead and move it. So I had these paper towels on there to avoid light exposure overnight while I let it sit. But I'm going to be putting that into secondary and then flushing it with CO2. So I'm going to be putting CO2 in here. I don't know if this is actually necessary. I don't know if I've seen anyone do this, but it just kind of seems like a good idea to me. So I'm going to fill this with CO2, just kind of purge it, and then use my auto siphon and drain it down into here, and then basically top off with CO2. So I have my auto siphon over here, sitting on sanitizer. I have a spray bottle of sanitizer, and then I have my airlock, which probably won't need it, but who knows, over here. I also have some more hops. I'm debating whether to dry hop it for a second time with 1.5 ounces of Mosaic. I'm gonna have to make that decision here in a day or so, but I still have about 30 days of aging left before I bottle or keg it, so I guess we'll see how it goes. Oh, just a second thought. This is how much trub I ended up with. It's pretty nasty. The top a little bit, you can tell is after I dry hopped it because it's green. And the crossing around the top, you know, pretty standard stuff. Not more than I expected, but so yeah. Time to go throw that back in the closet. But I have all my bottles Star Sand cleaned out. There's still a little bit of foam in there, but I'll dump that right before I bottle it. I use this automatic bottle cleaner that my lovely wife got for me, and I'm going to start bottling here in a second. I still have to mix in the I assume that's about 4 gallons of beer, so I'm going to mix in 4 ounces of dextrose, stir it up without creating too much oxygen, and then get it bottled. Okay, so this has been sealed up for, well, in secondary for 2.5, 3 weeks, and before that it was 2 weeks in primary. So hopefully this is aged long enough, and I'm about to pop the airlock off. Smells really good. Okie dokie. I'm going to fill the first bottle and probably just dump it out because of the amount of Star Sand that'll be in there. Just so you can see what's going on here. Alright, so I have 12 done so far. I've had the lid soaking in Star Sand. I'm going to go ahead and cap these 12 and then move on. So that's the first complete bottle right there. I'm going to throw it back in the bottle box and label it later on the caps. Okay, so I was editing my video down and I realized that I never did a comparison between my Homebrew clone for the Yellow Rose and the Yellow Rose. So I'm going to pour both of these up. I have this one chilling right now on ice, just because it was in my closet, and it's been about 3 weeks since I bottled it, so should be pretty good. I got my 2 clearest glasses just so you could kind of see some colors. I have drank some of these. They seem to be a little bit darker than the Yellow Rose for some reason. I don't really know why that is. Some people said oxidation. Some other people said that it's just kind of luck of the draw, and you know, it happens. But I've been doing a lot of research trying to figure it out. And yeah, so I'm going to be pouring both of these up. Obviously, you'll know what this one looks like from the beginning of the video, but I haven't had one of these in a couple weeks, so I'm going to pour this one into here, this one into here, and hopefully get some good like color shots, you know what I mean? So we're going to start with mine. It should be nice and chilled by now. So I got this on Amazon. It's actually pretty cool. It shoots bottle caps. So it's a bottle opener, and you pull this back, and it has a button that shoots the bottle cap. But you get it, it has magnets that hold on to it, and then you shoot it across the room. It's awesome. So, here we go. Hopefully you can see well. I'm going to try to stop before the yeast gets in there. Okay. So about right there. I don't know if you can see what I mean about it being dark, but I mean it is like a chocolatey brown color. I don't know if you can even see through that properly to get the color down. It's just kind of a weird color. And definitely this is going to be way more clear. So yet again, pull this back, pop the beer, holds on to it, shoots it. It's amazing. But I'm going to pour this into here. Yeah, instantly night and day on the color. I don't know if Caprilis puts a dark color in there, or if I just got some oxidation going, or what the deal was. But although the taste is very similar, these beers could not be more different in color. So I'm interested to see y'all's feedback on what you think happened there. Because these are supposed to be clones, and this is so far different. Flavor-wise, pretty close. But they're 2 very different beers. So the taste, I'm going to taste this real quick. Sorry, I got all my computer files and stuff. So this is the still that grapefruit, kind of a grapey almost flavor. Amazing beer. This smell, this one's more like bright, smells more bright, if that makes sense. This one is almost more like a malt forward. Like, I don't know if I pulled out enough malt for it to be that light. The hops aroma, the hops flavor and all that is pretty close, but I'm not getting those bright, like tropical fruit tones like I was getting on the other one. So it's still a really good beer. That's the surprising part for how different it looks. I mean, it's really good. Honestly, it kind of ratchets back on the brightness, but it doesn't lose that aroma and flavor of the Mosaic hops. So I'd definitely give this a try. I'll post up the recipe, but if you're going for Yellow Rose, I'm gonna do some tweaking. I'm gonna figure out what the deal is and actually get that beer to come out of my setup. So thank y'all for watching. Cheers, happy homebrewing. I really hope y'all get into this. It's a fun hobby. If this video was a little bit long, feel free to comment, and I might start breaking them up into the different sections. Like we could do a beer review for a beer that I'm trying to copy. We could do the mashing and the boil, and then we could do like the pitching of the yeast and all that. You know, it just depends on how long you want the videos to be. But just let me know when I finish these up, and I'll start editing this video down. And see y'all soon.